Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're exploring a book called The Laughing Prince, a book of Jugoslav fairy tales and folk tales,
Okay.
published way back in 1921. You might think fairy tales are just for kids, but these stories offer a glimpse into the heart of a culture.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how much they resonate even today.
Wow.
We're talking about love-lost trickery,
Uh-huh.
the whole human experience,
Yeah.
wrapped up in these fantastical tales.
It's fascinating how these stories, while set in a faraway land, speak to universal truths.
Absolutely.
They remind us that some human experiences transcend time and place.
And speaking of timeless experiences, let's start with The Laughing Prince.
Okay.
The story revolves around a princess who refuses to eat until someone makes her laugh. She's surrounded by these stuffy advisors and a father who's constantly yelling, "Wow, wow."
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface.
You know, this idea of laughter as medicine isn't new. These Jugoslav tales tap into something ancient. The understanding that joy is essential, not just a frivolous luxury. Think about it. Even royalty, with all their privileges, can be starved for genuine emotion.
Yeah.
This princess's laughter, or lack thereof,
Right.
becomes a powerful symbol of her inner well-being, something that's often neglected, even in today's world.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we often prioritize duty and decorum
Right.
over genuine human connection.
Uh-huh.
So how does this princess finally break free from her melancholy?
Enter Stefan,
Okay.
a humble farmer's son, who wins her over, not with grand gestures or riches, but with stories so absurd they make no sense whatsoever.
All right.
He talks about riding a rooster across the sea, or using his own hair as a rope to climb to heaven. It's pure, unadulterated nonsense.
It sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
But there's got to be more to it than just silly humor, right?
Okay. Stefan's nonsensical tales are more than just entertainment.
Yeah.
They're a way to break through the rigidity and formality of the princess's world.
Right.
Think about it. She's trapped in this environment where everything is about rules and expectations. Stefan's absurdity cracks open that world and allows her to experience the simple, liberating power of laughter. Yeah. And that, is something we can all relate to.
It reminds me of that saying, laughter's the best medicine. It really can be a powerful antidote to stress and rigidity.
Absolutely. And it's not just a folk wisdom.
Yeah.
Modern psychology backs this up.
Okay.
Laughter relieves stress, strengthens our bonds with others, and even makes us better learners. So you see, this princess isn't just being difficult.
Right.
She's intuitively seeking something essential for her well-being.
That's a great way to put it. It makes you realize how important it is to hold on to that sense of playfulness and humor, no matter how old we get. Now, from laughter and joy, let's move to a tale that explores a different side of the human experience. Beauty and the Horns. It's a cautionary tale about, well, a peerless beauty who's obsessed with material wealth.
Right.
She hoards treasure.
Wow.
And poor suitors have to offer increasingly valuable gifts just for a chance to see her face.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What drives someone to become so fixated on outward appearances? In this story, the beauty's obsession with material possessions reflects a deeper internal struggle.
Right.
She's constantly seeking validation from external sources,
Wow.
from the things people give her,
Yeah.
rather than cultivating her own inner worth.
It's almost like she's trying to fill a void with possessions.
Yeah.
And I bet that sets the stage for all sorts of trouble.
Precisely. It leads to a series of tests and manipulations that reveal both her vulnerabilities and the true nature of those who seek her hand.
And that's where we meet Danilo, a young man who's head over heels in love with this beauty. He showers her with gold, even finds a magic cap that makes him invisible, all for a glimpse of her legendary beauty.
Right.
But she keeps manipulating him, demanding more and more. I can't help but feel a little sorry for Danilo. It begs the question, how far would you go for love? At what point does pursuit become self-defeating?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Danilo's persistence is admirable, but it's also misplaced. He allows himself to be repeatedly tricked and humiliated. He loses sight of his own self-worth in his pursuit of her.
Right.
It makes you think about those moments in our own lives where we might be sacrificing too much for someone who isn't reciprocating in a healthy way.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is walk away from a situation that's no longer serving us.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between pursuing love and respecting ourselves.
So does Danilo ever wise up to Beauty's manipulations? Does he find a way to break through her obsession with material wealth?
He eventually discovers a magic pitcher that allows him to summon an army faced with overwhelming force. Beauty finally surrenders, acting all humble and repentant.
I bet Danilo falls for it hook, line, and sinker.
He does. He wants to believe that she's changed, but her behavior hasn't truly transformed. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can someone truly change simply because their circumstances have changed? Or does it require a deeper shift in their values and behavior? This story suggests that true transformation comes from within.
That's a profound insight. It's easy to get caught up in the surface level of things, but real change requires a deeper level of introspection and growth. So how does this story of outward appearances and inner struggles resolve itself?
Danilo, though, still smitten, has learned a few things along the way. He discovers these magic grapes. Red grapes cause horns to sprout on your head, and white grapes make them disappear. He uses this quirky power to give Beauty a taste of her own medicine. Showing her that outward beauty is fleeting and ultimately meaningless.
It's like a fairy tale version of be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. The grapes serve as a metaphor for the consequences of our choices. Beauty's fixation on outward appearances leads to a literal disfigurement, highlighting the potential pitfalls of valuing superficiality over substance. The story suggests that the antidote to this obsession is a willingness to confront our own flaws and embrace true inner growth.
It's a powerful reminder that true beauty lies within. From the perils of superficiality, let's dive into a story that explores the complexities of love and the destructive power of gossip. The Pigeon's Bride. It's about a princess who falls head over heels for a prince disguised as a pigeon.
Interesting.
He visits her window every day. She feeds him milk. They cuddle. It's all very romantic. But then things take a turn.
The pigeon imagery is quite intriguing. It symbolizes both freedom and vulnerability. The prince, trapped in this form, seeks connection and love. The princess, confined by her royal duties, finds solace in this unconventional relationship. But, as with any relationship, secrets and trust play a crucial role.
And in this case, the secret becomes a major point of tension. The princess, under pressure from her parents to marry a real prince, spills the beans about her pigeon prince to her mother. Of course, she swears her to secrecy. But you can probably guess what happens next.
This is where the story takes a dark turn. Highlighting the fragility of trust and the destructive power of words. Even well-intentioned gossip can have unintended and hurtful consequences. The princess's betrayal, while understandable given her predicament, sets off a chain of events that ultimately shatters the trust in their relationship.
That's a classic case of loose lips sink ships, right? The news gets out. The other kings mock the princess. And the pigeon prince, heartbroken and feeling betrayed, disappears. It's a real mess, and it leaves the princess utterly devastated. Talk about a cautionary tale.
The princess's predicament resonates with the challenges of maintaining privacy and navigating social pressures, especially in a world where information spreads so quickly. It's a reminder that our words have power.
Absolutely.
And that even seemingly harmless gossip can have a devastating impact on relationships and reputations. Think about your own life. Have you ever been on the receiving end of hurtful gossip? Or felt the pressure to reveal a secret you promised to keep? These stories remind us that our words have consequences. And that trust, once broken, can be incredibly difficult to repair.
Absolutely. It makes you think twice about the things we say and the impact they can have on others. But what about the princess? Does she simply accept her fate, or does she fight for her lost love?
She's not one to give up easily.
Determined to find her pigeon prince, she goes to extraordinary lengths. She offers a reward to anyone who can help. Even resorts to sitting in a public bathhouse for a year, hoping he'll somehow find her. It's a testament to the enduring power of hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
That's incredibly romantic. But also a bit heartbreaking. It makes you wonder if her efforts will be rewarded, or if she's destined for a life of loneliness.
Well, as with most fairy tales, fate often intervenes in unexpected ways. While sitting in the bathhouse, a poor widow's daughter overhears the princess's story
Hmm.
and remembers seeing a strange rooster wearing woody shoes.
Wait, a rooster wearing shoes?
Uh-huh.
That sounds like something straight out of one of Stefan's nonsensical tales.
It's a seemingly insignificant detail,
Right?
but it's crucial.
Okay.
It introduces a new thread to the story, one that speaks to the interconnectedness of seemingly disparate events.
Mm-hmm.
The rooster, a symbol of domesticity and routine.
It becomes an unlikely guide on an unexpected adventure. And this is where things start to get really interesting. It's intriguing how this rooster, a creature we usually associate with barnyards and early mornings, becomes a key player in the princess's quest.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even the most ordinary things can hold hidden meaning and significance if we're open to seeing it.
It makes you wonder if we're all just walking past magical creatures in disguise every day.
Right.
But let's get back to the story.
Okay.
What happens when the widow's daughter follows this rooster?
She discovers that he's associating with 11 other roosters.
Okay.
And get this, they all turn into princes.
Wow.
And the 12th rooster, the one who remains a pigeon, is none other than the princess's lost love. It seems he's under a curse that can only be broken when his bride proves her unwavering loyalty.
So it wasn't just gossip that separated them, but a magical test of their bond.
Right.
It adds a whole new layer of complexity to their love story.
Yeah.
But how does the widow's daughter factor into all of this?
She becomes the unlikely hero,
Okay.
helping to reunite the lovers and break the curse. It's a reminder that sometimes help comes from unexpected places,
Right.
and that even those who seem insignificant can play a vital role in our destinies.
It's a beautiful message about the power of connection and the unexpected ways in which our lives can intertwine.
Yeah.
But before we get too sentimental, let's move on to a story that takes a slightly different approach to loyalty and betrayal.
Okay.
The Little Lame Fox. It's about 3 brothers who set out to seek their fortune.
Right.
And of course, the youngest, the kind-hearted Janko, is the one who truly shines.
The 3 brothers archetype is a common thread throughout folklore, isn't it?
Yeah.
It allows us to explore a range of human characteristics and see how different choices lead to different outcomes. In this case, Janko's kindness and compassion set him apart from his greedy, self-serving brothers.
Right.
It's a reminder that true wealth isn't always measured in material possessions.
It's like the old saying, it's better to be rich in heart than rich in pocket. But how does Janko's kindness come into play in this story?
Well, along his journey, he keeps encountering a little lame fox who begs for food.
Okay.
His brothers, being the ruthless sorts, want to kill it. But Janko, despite having very little himself, shares his meager meal with the fox.
I bet that act of generosity doesn't go unrewarded.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
It turns out the fox is magical and becomes Janko's guide and protector, leading him to all sorts of treasures. A golden horse, a golden maiden, a magic grapevine, even a golden cradle.
Wow, talk about hitting the jackpot.
Right.
But I imagine these treasures come with a few strings attached, right?
Of course. Each treasure represents a test of Janko's character. He has to resist temptation and prove that he's worthy of these gifts.
Right.
And to make things even more challenging, his greedy brothers are always lurking in the shadows, ready to steal his rewards.
It sounds like a classic battle between good and evil, with Janko's integrity being put to the ultimate test.
Yeah.
So how does he fare against these challenges? Does he manage to keep his heart pure amidst all the temptation?
Janko's journey is full of twists and turns, but he ultimately proves that he's a true hero.
Okay.
He wins the heart of the Golden Maiden and earns the respect of the magical creatures he encounters. His brothers, consumed by their own greed, try to sabotage him at every turn.
Right.
But their deceit ultimately leads to their own downfall.
Wow.
It's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences and that true fulfillment comes from living a life of integrity.
It's a comforting thought, knowing that goodness often prevails in the end. But speaking of challenges and tests of character, let's move on to a story that's full of adventure and magical transformations.
Okay.
The Enchanted Peafowl. This one's about, yeah, you guess it, another youngest prince who's determined to prove his worth.
The recurring theme of the youngest prince proving himself is quite fascinating, isn't it? It suggests that true strength often comes from humility and a willingness to learn and grow.
It's like they say, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Right.
But what's this youngest prince up against in this particular story?
This time the challenge is to solve a mystery. Who's stealing the Tsar's golden apples? His older brothers, as usual, are more interested in taking shortcuts.
Right.
And end up failing miserably.
Of course.
But the youngest prince, he approaches the task with patience and determination.
Okay.
He stays awake while his brothers slumber.
Mm-hmm.
And he discovers something truly remarkable.
Knowing these fairy tales, it's probably not a simple thief behind the missing apples.
Right.
What does he find?
9 peafowl owl, each more beautiful than the last, who transform into maidens.
Okay.
It turns out they're the ones eating the golden apples.
Mm.
And the 9th peafowl maiden, well, she's quite taken with the prince.
Mm.
But there's a catch.
What's that?
She can only remain in human form until sunrise.
Oh, no. Talk about a time crunch for romance.
Right.
It's like a fairy tale version of Cinderella, but with feathered friends instead of a pumpkin carriage.
Exactly.
Okay.
The peafowl transformation adds an element of mystery and allure to the story. Peafowl, with their vibrant plumage, often symbolize beauty and transformation.
Right.
But the 9th maiden's predicament highlights the fleeting nature of time and the challenges of balancing desire with duty. It makes you wonder, how would you navigate such a situation? Would you risk everything for a love that might disappear with the morning light?
It's a question that speaks to the heart of what it means to be human.
Right.
The choices we make, the risks we take, and the fleeting nature of time. But what does the prince do? Does he try to break the enchantment and keep his peafowl maiden by his side?
He does.
Okay.
Desperate to hold on to her, he tries all sorts of things. He even hides an old woman under the bed to snip off a lock of the peafowl maiden's hair.
Okay.
Hoping that will break the spell.
That's a bit sneaky.
Yeah.
Does it work?
Fortunately, no.
Oh.
It backfires, and the peafowl maiden, feeling betrayed, flies away, leaving behind only a few cryptic clues.
Okay.
The prince's actions, while driven by love, are ultimately misguided.
Right.
He resorts to trickery and manipulation, violating the trust that was beginning to form between them.
It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, we can sometimes stumble and make choices that hurt those we care about. But I'm guessing the prince doesn't give up that easily.
You're right.
Okay.
Driven by his love for the peafowl maiden, he embarks on a perilous journey. Following those cryptic clues,
Okay.
he encounters all sorts of challenges along the way.
Wow.
He has to find a head that was struck off from a nail,
Okay.
free a maiden trapped in a mountain, even outsmart a treacherous servant who keeps putting him to sleep with magic bellows.
Good.
It's a classic hero's journey filled with tests of courage, resilience, and resourcefulness.
It sounds like he's really putting himself through the ringer for this peafowl maiden.
Yeah.
But does he eventually find her?
He does. He finally tracks her down to this magical kingdom where she's revealed to be the princess.
Wow.
And guess what? She warns him not to open the 12th cellar door.
Ooh, a forbidden door.
Uh-huh.
That never ends well in fairy tales, does it?
I don't know these stories too well.
Yeah.
Of course, curiosity gets the better of him, and he opens the door.
Okay.
He hears a voice begging for water, and thinking he's doing a good deed, gives the mysterious voice a drink.
I have a bad feeling about this.
You should.
Okay.
It turns out he's just unleashed a fearsome dragon who promptly kidnaps the princess.
Oh, no. This is why we never open forbidden doors. But now that the dragon's loose and the princess is in peril, what does the prince do?
He has to face the consequences of his actions, of course.
Right.
He sets out to rescue the princess from the dragon's clutches.
Okay.
But it's a race against time. He tries to outrun the dragon on horseback.
Yeah.
But the dragon's got a magical steed that's way faster.
It sounds like he's going to need some magical assistance of his own. Where does he turn for help?
He seeks out the old woman of the mountain, a figure who often appears in folklore representing wisdom and mastery over nature. She promises him her magical mare, but only if he can catch her shape-shifting foal for 3 nights in a row.
A shape-shifting foal.
Right.
That sounds like a tricky task.
Yeah.
How does he manage to pull it off?
This is where his past experiences come in handy.
Okay.
Remember that handkerchief of magical trinkets from the story of the wonderful hair? Well, he uses those trinkets, the fox hair, the raven feather, and the mirror, to outsmart the foal in its various forms.
Wow.
It's a reminder that our past experiences, even those that seem insignificant at the time, can provide us with the tools we need to overcome future challenges.
It's like a cosmic toolbox filled with lessons and resources that we gather along our life's journey. But does he manage to catch the foal and obtain the magical mare?
He does.
Okay.
The old woman, impressed by his cleverness and perseverance, rewards him with the mare. He rides off to the dragon's castle, scoops up the princess.
Okay.
And thanks to the mare's incredible speed, they manage to escape the dragon's clutches.
What a daring rescue.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's finally earned his happily ever after with the Peafowl princess.
Right.
But what about his brothers? Are they still snoozing away while he's out there risking his neck?
Well, when they finally return to the kingdom, they're nowhere to be found. It turns out they'd been captured by the dragon.
Oh, no.
But the prince, showing his true heroic nature, returns to the dragon's lair and sets them free.
Wow.
Proving that compassion and forgiveness can triumph even over betrayal.
That's incredibly noble of him. He's not just a brave adventurer, but a truly good-hearted person.
Right.
It makes you wonder, if you were in his shoes, would you be so forgiving? It's a question that challenges us to examine our own capacity for compassion and understanding.
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for now, let's leave the youngest prince to his well-deserved happiness and move on to a story that explores a different kind of strength.
Okay.
The dragon's strength.
Oh, another dragon.
I'm
sensing a theme here, but this time it sounds like the dragon's strength might be more than just brute force.
You're picking up on something important.
Okay.
This story isn't just about slaying a monster. It's about recognizing the hidden strengths within ourselves and the power of unexpected alliances.
Intriguing. So who's our hero this time? Another youngest prince, perhaps?
You guessed it.
Okay.
Once again, we see the youngest prince proving his worth.
Right.
This time, a dragon is terrorizing the kingdom, and the two older princes set out to defeat it. But you can probably guess what happens next.
They fail miserably.
They both get distracted, one by a hare and the other by a falcon, demonstrating their lack of focus and discipline.
Those poor older brothers.
Right.
They never seem to learn, do they? Always falling for the easy distractions.
Yeah.
But what about our youngest prince? How does he approach this dragon challenge?
He's wiser than his brothers, learning from their mistakes.
Oh.
He avoids the hare and the falcon, sensing that they're probably tricks. He continues on his journey and encounters an old woman who, as it turns out, is the dragon's prisoner. And she reveals a crucial piece of information: the dragon's weakness.
Ooh, a weakness. This is getting good.
Yeah.
But what kind of weakness are we talking about? Is it a magical herb, a hidden vulnerability, or something even more unexpected?
This is where the tale takes an interesting turn.
Okay.
The dragon's weakness isn't something that can be exploited with brute force or cunning. It's something far more subtle.
Okay.
The dragon can only be defeated if during their wrestling match, someone kisses the prince on the forehead.
A kiss on the forehead. That's a rather unusual weakness for a fearsome dragon.
Right.
It seems this story is going to be less about physical strength and more about what? Love? Compassion? Something else entirely.
It's a fascinating blend of strength and vulnerability, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that even the most powerful beings have hidden weaknesses. And sometimes the most unexpected gestures can be the most powerful.
It makes you think about all the ways in which we underestimate the power of simple acts of kindness and connection.
Right.
But how does this unusual weakness play out in the story? Does the prince have a secret admirer waiting in the wings to deliver that fateful kiss?
Well, the prince, knowing he can't defeat the dragon alone, disguises himself as a shepherd.
Okay.
The Tsar, desperate to save his kingdom, offers his daughter's hand in marriage to whoever slays the dragon.
Classic fairy tale trope. The princess as a reward for the hero's bravery.
Right.
But I imagine this princess isn't just a passive prize to be won. What's her role in all of this?
She's far from passive. She's initially reluctant to marry a simple shepherd, highlighting the societal constraints placed upon her choices. But as the story unfolds, she proves to be far more courageous and compassionate than anyone expects.
I'm sensing a turning point in this story.
Yeah.
What happens when the prince, disguised as a shepherd, confronts the dragon?
They engage in a fierce wrestling match by the lake.
Okay.
Just when it seems like the prince is about to lose, the Tsar's daughter, overcoming her initial hesitation, runs down from the hill and kisses him on the forehead.
Talk about a bold move.
Right.
It seems this princess is more than just a damsel in distress. She's taking charge of her own destiny and playing a vital role in the dragon's defeat. But what about the prince? How does he react to this unexpected act of courage and, dare I say, affection?
Well, the dragon, weakened by this display of love and defiance, is defeated. The Tsar, true to his word, offers his daughter to the shepherd.
Okay.
But the prince, ever the honorable gentleman, refuses to marry her unless she truly desires it.
He's not going to take advantage of the situation. Even though he's technically earned the right to marry her. It speaks volumes about his character.
Yeah.
Well, what about the princess? Does she actually want to marry this shepherd who's just saved her kingdom?
She does.
Wow.
It turns out she's been smitten with him all along, even before his heroic feat.
Ah. So there's a love story brewing beneath the surface of this dragon-slaying adventure.
Right.
But I imagine there are still a few loose ends to tie up before we reach our happily ever after.
Indeed.
Okay.
The shepherd reveals his true identity as the prince, much to everyone's delight. They celebrate their wedding with great fanfare.
Well,
The prince, ever mindful of his obligations, remembers his imprisoned brothers.
he doesn't forget those who, let's face it, weren't exactly the best siblings.
Yeah.
It shows a remarkable level of compassion and forgiveness. So does he go back to the dragon's lair to rescue them?
He does.
Okay.
He returns to the lair and sets his brothers free. Demonstrating that true heroism extends beyond defeating monsters.
Right.
It's about upholding justice and extending compassion even to those who have wronged us.
It's a beautiful message about the transformative power of forgiveness and the importance of staying true to our values, even in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
But from the triumph of good over evil, let's turn to a story that explores a darker side of human nature.
Okay.
The Girl in the Chest.
A chilling title.
Yeah, this tale delves into the realms of deception, manipulation, and the abuse of power.
Okay.
It's a story about a vampire who preys on the innocence of three sisters, luring them into marriage with false promises,
Wow.
and then imprisoning them in his creepy underground lair.
Ooh, a vampire.
Right?
Now that's a classic monster with a long history of captivating and terrifying audiences.
Yeah.
But this story sounds particularly chilling with the added element of entrapment and betrayal.
So what happens to these poor sisters? Do they manage to escape the vampire's clutches?
The first two sisters sadly meet a tragic end. But the youngest sister, she's a fighter.
Okay.
She refuses to succumb to despair.
Right.
She prays for guidance.
Yeah.
And then, using her wits and resourcefulness,
Okay.
she manages to escape through a network of underground tunnels.
It's a ray of hope in an otherwise grim situation.
Right.
She's not giving up without a fight.
Yeah.
But where does she end up after her daring escape from the vampire's lair? Does she return home, seek refuge elsewhere?
Her journey takes an unexpected turn.
Okay.
She ends up hiding in a chest. And that chest is taken to a prince's castle.
A chest.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fairy tale version of a Trojan horse.
Right.
I'm intrigued. What happens once she reaches the castle? Does she remain hidden in the chest, or does she make her presence known?
When everyone's asleep, she sneaks out of the chest.
Okay.
And as fate would have it, the prince discovers her. Naturally, he's smitten, but their budding romance is threatened by a new villain, the prince's jealous chamberlain.
So the danger hasn't passed entirely.
Right.
It seems like there's always someone lurking in the shadows, ready to disrupt happiness and sow discord. What does this chamberlain do to sabotage the girl's newfound happiness?
He wants his own daughter to marry the prince. So he frames the girl,
Okay.
accusing her of wrongdoing and having her kidnapped.
Talk about a betrayal.
Right.
It seems like even in a prince's castle, there's no escaping the complexities of human nature and the potential for envy and deceit.
Yeah.
But what happens to the girl? Does she succumb to this latest setback, or does she find a way to fight back against these false accusations?
This girl has faced unimaginable challenges.
Right.
And she's not about to let a jealous chamberlain destroy her chance at happiness.
Okay.
She manages to escape her captors and finds refuge with a kindly old woman who helps her clear her name.
It's heartwarming to know that even in the darkest of times, there are still those who offer kindness and support to those in need.
Absolutely.
But what about the prince? Does he believe these accusations against the girl he's fallen for?
Initially, he's deceived by the chamberlain's lies.
Okay.
But deep down, he knows there's more to the story.
Right.
He sets out to uncover the truth. And eventually, the chamberlain's deception is revealed.
Okay.
Justice is served. The chamberlain faces the consequences of his actions.
Right.
And the girl and the prince are finally free to pursue their love without fear or deceit.
It's a classic tale of good versus evil, with a reminder that truth and justice will ultimately prevail.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's a story about resilience,
Right.
the power of hope, and the importance of finding allies and supporters who believe in us, even when the odds are stacked against us.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about the people in your own life who've been there for you during difficult times.
Yeah.
Who are the ones you can always count on for support and encouragement.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to go through life's challenges alone.
It takes a village, as they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all need that network of support to help us navigate the ups and downs of life. But before we get too philosophical, let's move on to a story that emphasizes the power of knowledge and the interconnectedness of our actions.
Oh, hey.
The Wonderful Hare.
Another intriguing title.
Yeah, this tale takes us on a journey from poverty to prosperity.
Okay.
Highlighting the importance of faith, perseverance, and the pursuit of knowledge. It's about a poor man with a large family who's desperate for money.
Right.
He prays for help. And an angel appears to him in a dream.
Okay.
Offering a solution that's both bizarre and intriguing.
An angel appearing in a dream.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're entering the realm of divine intervention and perhaps a touch of magic.
So what does this angel tell the poor man to do?
The angel instructs him to go to a specific spot in the woods,
Okay.
find a maiden bathing, and pluck out a single red hair from her head.
Wait, what? Pluck a hair from a bathing maiden? That sounds intrusive, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm guessing there's more to this task than meets the eye.
Yeah.
What's so special about this red hair?
It turns out the maiden is a Vila,
Okay.
a supernatural being often associated with nature and magic. And that red hair,
Yeah.
it's imbued with extraordinary power.
Okay.
It holds the key to transforming the poor man's life.
So it's not just a random act of mischief. It's a quest for a magical artifact with life-altering potential.
Exactly.
But how does the poor man react to this unusual task? Does he hesitate? Or does he trust the angel's guidance and go for it?
He's desperate, so he follows the angel's instructions,
Okay.
narrowly escaping the Vila's wrath in the process.
Wow.
He obtains the red hair, but his challenges are far from over.
Okay.
He tries to sell it, but no one believes it's worth anything.
I can imagine it's not every day that you come across a single hair with supposedly magical properties.
Right.
But how does he convince people of its value?
He takes a rather clever approach.
Okay.
He starts refusing increasingly large sums of money for the hair.
Interesting.
This creates intrigue and elevates its perceived value.
It's like a reverse auction. He's playing on people's desire for something rare and valuable.
Right.
And I bet it works like a charm.
You're right.
Okay.
Eventually, the Tsar himself hears about this extraordinary hair and offers a fortune for it.
So the poor man goes from rags to riches, thanks to a single red hair. But what's so special about this hair? Does it grant wishes, bestow magical powers?
It's not that kind of magic.
Okay.
When the Tsar examines the hair, he discovers a scroll hidden inside. And the scroll contains knowledge that benefits not just the Tsar, but all of society.
So the poor man's initial act of desperation leads to a greater good.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful example of how even seemingly insignificant actions can have a ripple effect and create positive change in the world.
It highlights the interconnectedness of our actions and reminds us that even small acts of faith and perseverance can have far-reaching consequences.
It's an inspiring message, especially in a world where we often feel overwhelmed by the scale of global challenges.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that every act of kindness, every pursuit of knowledge can contribute to a brighter future.
Right.
But as we approach the end of our deep dive into these Yugoslav tales,
Okay.
let's turn to a story that brings us back to the importance of simple acts of kindness. The Best Wish.
Sounds promising.
This tale presents us with a classic moral dilemma.
Okay.
How do we treat those in need, especially when we ourselves have little to give?
Right.
It's a story about three brothers who are tested by an angel disguised as a beggar.
Ooh, a test of character.
I'm guessing the brothers' responses to this disguised angel reveal a lot about their true natures. What happens when they encounter this beggar?
The oldest two brothers are selfish and dismissive.
Typical.
But the youngest brother, he demonstrates remarkable generosity.
Okay.
He offers the beggar his last piece of bread.
Wow.
And even invites him to share his humble home.
It's a testament to his kind heart and his willingness to share, even when he has very little himself.
Right.
But I bet his generosity doesn't go unnoticed.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
The angel, impressed by his selfless actions, reveals his true identity and grants the youngest brother a wish.
A wish. What a reward for his kindness. But what does he wish for? Riches. Power. Something more meaningful.
His wish, guided by his good heart,
Okay.
leads him to marry a princess and inherit a kingdom.
Talk about a fairy tale ending.
Uh-huh.
It seems that kindness truly does have its rewards, even in the realm of magic and folklore.
Right.
But beyond the material rewards, this story speaks to something deeper, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a reminder that our actions have consequences, and that even small acts of kindness can have a profound impact on our lives and the lives of others.
It's a beautiful message to carry with us as we conclude our journey through these enchanting Jugoslav tales. It's amazing how these stories weave together themes of kindness, generosity, and the power of good intentions. But speaking of good intentions, what happens to the youngest brother after he gets his wish? Does he live happily ever after, or are there more challenges in store for him?
Well, his wish doesn't magically solve all his problems.
Right.
He faces obstacles and makes mistakes along the way.
Uh-huh.
But his inherent goodness and willingness to learn from his experiences guide him toward a brighter future. It's a reminder that even when we're blessed with good fortune, life is still a journey of growth and discovery.
It's a comforting thought knowing that even fairy tale endings come with real-life lessons.
Right.
It makes those happily ever afters feel a bit more relatable. But before we wrap up our deep dive into these Jugoslav tales, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
Okay.
What are some of the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to ponder?
These stories, though, rooted in a specific culture and time period, speak to universal human experiences. They remind us of the importance of laughter, the dangers of greed and superficiality, the power of kindness, and the complexities of love and betrayal. They offer a glimpse into the human heart with all its strengths and weaknesses, hopes and fears.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring these tales and uncovering their hidden layers of meaning.
Right.
I have to admit, I started this deep dive thinking fairy tales were just whimsical stories. But I've come to realize that there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
They're reflections of our shared humanity.
Yeah.
And they offer timeless wisdom that can guide us through life's challenges.
Exactly.
Okay.
They provide a framework for understanding ourselves and the world around us. They remind us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
Right.
And that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a ripple effect, creating positive change that extends far beyond ourselves.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on. These Jugoslav tales have not only entertained us, but have also challenged us to think differently about the world and our place in it. They've reminded us of the importance of laughter, the power of kindness, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.
Right.
So until next time, keep exploring those old tales, and who knows what you might discover.
And as we conclude this deep dive, we invite you, our listeners, to continue exploring these tales and uncovering their hidden depths. Ask yourself which stories resonated most with you and why. Consider how these themes, though centuries old, still hold meaning in our modern world.
Right.
Perhaps these Jugoslav tales can spark your own personal deep dive into the timeless wisdom of folklore and the enduring power of storytelling.
That sounds like a great idea. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive. Bye, everybody.